focus on hot water is really because of the market that we're situated in, and the fact that if you take a pizza and there's, half a pizza is one color, let's just say blue, and the other is another color, which is red, and our color is green for Go Lime. Right now, we believe we can go get a slice and then maybe get a second slice just by offering the power of choice, utilizing technology and a platform that can drive it direct to the customer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home Service Hustle. I'm your host, Jonathan Bannister, and today I'm with Jeff Schwartz. And Jeff is the CEO at Go Lime Incorporated, based out of Toronto, Canada. Jeff, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Great to be here.
All right. So, Jeff, look, I know you've got an extensive 25 plus years in and around this industry. Let's just kind of go back to the beginning. Let's kind of talk about where Jeff got his start in this space.
Yeah, when you say in this space, I think you mean in sort of the philosophical word of this space, because I've been in a lot of spaces, but I'll start from the beginning and feel free to interrupt at any time.
All right, let's go.
Look, I would say when you say, where did it all begin? I had a fortunate opportunity to go to summer camp when I was a kid. And when you go to summer camp, you get a couple things straight really quickly. Number one, you have to get along with people pretty easily because you're in the middle of the forest and you're living in cabins. Number two, if things go really well, you grow up and you spend a lot of summers there. And then number three, if you do really well, you become a counselor, and even more so, you can become what was called a unit head or a section head or a director at the camp. So I had that huge opportunity to oversee probably 200-300 kids. And when you think about, where do you start and how do you know where you want to go? I knew two things. I knew I wanted to be working with people, and I knew that I wanted to be something in the communication field. Looking after kids is a huge privilege, and for sure, but you don't know that when you're 16, 17, 18 years old. Yep. But when I think through all of the things that I've done in my career, I always go back to that analogy. It's like you grow up at camp and you have to not fend for yourself, but you have to learn a whole bunch of skills, but you most importantly have to learn how to get along with other people.
So, how many years were you in and around the camp?
Yeah, like almost 15. So 14 summers, from being a camper to being a counselor to being a section head.
Wow. Okay. And so were you ever going to was the plan to make a career out of that?
No. So the funny part is the plan was never a plan. The plan was I wanted to go back because that's where my friends were. I enjoyed having a summer job where I didn't have to, sort of work a regular 9-to-5 job when I was still in school. But funny enough, it introduced me to who now bought the summer camp, was an entertainment company. And this gentleman had a very large entertainment company here north of the border and did a lot of things south of the border as well, and trained me to be a disc jockey. So funny enough, going to that summer camp trained me to be a disc jockey, and training me to be a disc jockey sort of got me comfortable in front of a microphone, in front of an audience. And that was sort of how that's how I became interested in sales and marketing. It sort of started it with all of that.
All right. So now this is like taking a crazy turn, right? So now you're a disc jockey and so in Toronto?
Yeah, so I was in Toronto driving my mom's green Dodge Caravan. So I was 16 years old, part-time job, and I was a huge asset because I had the dark green Dodge Caravan, so I could carry the equipment and set it up was the beginning. And then an on-air microphone person for most of, I would say, the better part of 8 years as a disc jockey.
All right. And then so what did you learn on the sales and marketing side as a disc jockey? I mean, I'm sure you got to be around a lot of sales people, radio had a ton of sales in the radio days.
Yeah. Number one, funny enough, is the notion of customer centricity at a young age. I would often sit with, family. It was usually a mom and dad, if it was their kid's Sweet 16, let's say. And no matter what the situation was, you had to focus on the customer. And the customer wanted not only to be listened to, but they wanted to create something special for their child. And whether that was the same thing at a school dance or whether it was at a wedding, every single one of them was always around making sure that the person sitting across the table from you had an exceptional experience in what you were doing. Right. So for me, number one was learning, and it's a bit cliche, the customer is always right, but customer focus is number one. Number two, is the art of selling, right? You're sitting and having a conversation with someone. It's not as simple as, would you like lights with that? If it was back in the time of Beanie Babies, would you like Beanie Babies as a prize for your kids at the bar bat mitzvah? No, It's none of that. It's about asking questions and finding out, what is it that makes these people tick, and try to provide them with a solution based on the facts and the information they presented to you. So I would say what I learned early on, you have to show up early, do a great job. You're the last to leave. You always have to hustle. But if you deliver flawlessly for the customer, the way I got my next job was word of mouth. And so if somebody was there and said, that guy, Jeff Schwartz, he's not horrible, or eventually that guy, Jeff Schwartz, is really great, the next thing you knew, I would have a list of, I'd go back to the office and, Corey, who owned the company, would say, Jeff, we have 5 people that requested you. What did you do? And I didn't do anything. I just showed up and did the best job I could. So I think that was the first foray into anything that I even understood as sales and marketing, because it was about, doing your best job.
All right. So you talked about you were down in this Plano area for a while. What tell the audience what you were doing here in the Dallas market?
Yeah. So fast forward, I spent 18 years in telecom. So we'll skip that chapter, and had a great opportunity. Brookfield Infrastructure made a very large investment across North America, purchasing Enercare Inc. And I joined right when the transaction was completed, and first started as the senior vice president of sales and marketing for Canada. And after the first 6 months or so, took on senior vice president of marketing for the US business, which was called Service Experts. So I had frequent flyer miles, stayed at a lot of different hotels in Richardson and Plano, but spent a lot of time with the team at Service Experts down in Texas and in the Plano area.
All right. So let's talk about your tenure there, and like what was your main role over the years working with the Service Expert brand?
Yeah. So my main role was head of marketing. So, it was, title wasn't even important. It was senior vice president of marketing, but really what it was working with a team, because it was the opposite model of what I had in Canada. In Canada, we had one brand, and you went to market as Enercare across all of our millions of customers. In the US, it was Service Experts as the primary brand, but all of the sub brands sat beneath it, because these locally, it was obviously owned by Service Experts, but locally started companies that had been purchased by Service Experts had this local champion feel, like they were part of the community. They had their name on the wall. They had their name on the truck. And so it was like creating a franchise model with Service Experts in the US, but maintaining that pride of ownership, pride of community that came with the original banner name beneath the Service Experts. So like a really interesting marriage between local community and what I would call the master brand being Service Experts, and how those two can work together.
Yeah, I always found that interesting when I would see certain trucks that would go by that would just say Service Experts, and then in other markets it would say, ABC Heat and Air, a Service Experts brand or something, right? And I like that they weren't going in eventually, because I think in the beginning they were just acquiring and turning them all Service Experts, and I think they started learning probably through some of the numbers and way things were going, like, oof. Like they had a brand in this market, and maybe we should try to capitalize a little bit more off of that brand, and kind of making Service Experts the sister, brand on this label, and still, they can get the best of both worlds, still have that local home feel, but also knowing that they're backed by a stronger company that has a little deeper pockets to be able to help get the lowest cost that they possibly can, whatever that may, make the consumer feel like. Okay. So how many years were you working in that role?
So it was a 24-month adventure from the time I started in both the Canadian and US. COVID was incredible because I think I probably wish I was in Texas the whole time, in the sense of, you only can look backwards sometimes, but you can't
Right.
change the past. Very different Canadian environment with COVID than in the US. So spent a couple of years and decided to take more of a Canadian role again back in Toronto, and but it was an incredible adventure where not only made lifelong friends, but worked with people that I admire still to this day.
All right. So is there anything missing part of the story from your time with the Service Experts brand to current today with GoLime? Right.
Yeah,
that we need to say that will get the full story there.
No, you know what? Not really. No, like the simple answer was after being on the road for a couple of years back and forth. And, I think sometimes you see things through, and it was the perfect timing for me. I certainly couldn't go work for another energy company because I had an important investment that I made in my career moving over to the Enercare and Service Experts team. So I took some time to do some other things in between, but that's how I got back into energy. I was able to spend some time doing some work in luxury travel, doing some work back in telecom and technology. And the funny part is when you sit back and look at what GoLime is and is becoming, it's because of that customer experience lens in doing a contract and global travel. It's part of the, sort of technology element where you started to realize, oh my God, there's got to be a better way to do it. That sort of got me through the GoLime, but I owe a lot of it to my network. I sat with a few private equity guys in Toronto, and they had made an introduction to me to the chairman and founder of what is GoLime. And all of that would not have happened had I not had the experience that I had all the way through. So realistically, it was a couple of years of doing some passion projects, but ultimately got back to where I felt that I could add the most value, which was in this space that I'm back in now, which is very similar to the experience at Enercare and Service Experts, probably turned upside down, which we can get into.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm ready. Like I'm super excited to learn more about GoLime. I've done a little research, but now I want you to just kind of walk through the entire, what is this company? How did it get started? And then, what are the future goals?
Yeah, for sure. So number one, the company has been in one shape or another around since 2011.
Okay.
So the chairman who started the company was an immigrant to Canada, arrived in the early 2000s, and knew a couple things. Number one, he knew that he wanted to create something and he didn't know what. And he knew too that there was a really interesting model in Ontario, which we can spend some time with, around the commodity, which is natural gas where we live, and the appliances. If you think about sort of the furnace and the air conditioner, et cetera, a lot of the companies when it started in Ontario were one. Meaning it's like saying that, you have in the US, it's like Apple, and Apple sells the phones, but they also have the network too. And so that's a little bit of the history, which we'll get to later. But the founder who started the business sort of always had this inclination that there could be more competition in the space. And we're going to park that, but I think it's an important nuance in a story, because the company that exists today would never have been able to be founded or created without, an individual taking a risk to say, I wonder what would happen if there was a bit more competition, or I wonder if someone could do it a little bit differently. And the company's gone through, peaks and valleys like every company. But the current version of the company is simply this. Number one, we're really a fighter brand. And why that fighter or challenger brand is important to share is because there are, we're in a market in Ontario, which is very different than Texas. In Texas, if I asked you how many players are there, and I'll pick one product for a second. Do you have hot water in your home, Jonathan?
I do.
And if you, I'm assuming it's in a hot water tank or a tankless device.
Yep. Tankless.
How many providers do you have of those hot water heaters, tanks or tankless in the area that you live?
To provide the physical tank or tankless water heater?
No, the physical tank. Obviously, the water probably comes from some utility. I get that.
Yeah, okay.
That's the state. But the actual, like, putting that tank or tankless in the house, how many competitors do you think there are in a market to put those in your home?
Hundreds.
That's right. That's the answer. There's hundreds of companies. In Ontario, it's there's two. Like, that's the crazy part of it. And the history of Ontario as a market is, of course, there's more than two, but there's two. There are two competitors that are both huge corporations, and those companies have done an amazing job of getting into every home, both in pre-construction and post-construction, to put water heaters on long-term rental contracts in customers' homes. And so what Go Lime represents to me is three or four things. And I say to me because I want to talk through it. Number one is customer choice. If I told you that where I live, there's 3 million homes, and 3 million homes have water heaters with one of two competitors, I think you would say, wow, Jeff, like, that is very different than the market I work at. So that's number one. Number two, the price of the water heater on a monthly basis is on what's called a rental contract. So very different than what's available in Plano, but that sort of tells a bit of my story, because when I joined Service Experts, they introduced a rental offering. And so if you're on a rental offering, you obviously can sit back and say you're either happy with what you pay or not happy with what you pay. You're happy with the service, you're not happy with the service, and you had choice or you didn't when you moved into your home. We'll get there later. But last but not least, when it comes to Go Lime, it's almost sitting back in a chair and saying to yourself, what's wrong with an industry if there's really no choice and only two players that provide the physical infrastructure in your home to warm the water for your family? So what we set up to do was build a bit of a revolution using technology. And I'll spend some time on why that's such a revolution, because it shouldn't be. But the way that I look at disruption, sometimes it's the most simple principle. When something is, when you don't have choice and you have no other options, sometimes the best way to figure out a new option is to reinvent the model. And that's a little bit of what I want to spend some time with you, Jonathan, talking about, because you're going to say, but Jeff, it's just hot water. I'll walk you through why it's not just hot water, because every single thing in your home you can choose in Ontario, except for hot water. We're here to change that. And, you know, one of the companies, and, you know, we'll smile, but one of the companies, when you look back in the 90s, that changed how you bought books was Amazon. You used to walk into a bookstore to buy a book, and suddenly they came along. One product, one focus. We're certainly not branding ourselves as the Amazon of HVAC or the Amazon of water heaters. But what we do believe, we believe that there's a lot of disruptive models that have made some significant changes of how you went to go get the product that changed the way people in the future experience the product. And that's a bit of the journey we're on with Go Lime on the power of choice.
So can you help me and the audience understand how is that Canada in general? Is that just Ontario? But like
just Ontario.
Okay. How did it get to that place?
For sure.
There's plumbing companies that exist there. How did these plumbing companies not be able to sell water heaters to consumers?
Yeah, great question. So without going into, because it doesn't matter every brand or every historical significance, but, you know, decades ago, what ended up happening is there was a relationship between the commodity being the gas and the billing of the appliances that got put in the house to sort of warm water. So in Ontario, the most efficient way in the past life, electricity's coming, but our gas pricing's much cheaper for natural gas than the cost for electricity in Ontario. Quebec, another province, totally different. So I know when I spent my time in Texas, you have a lot of electricity feeds in Texas. So there's probably a lot of electrical appliances. In Ontario, and look, Canada is known for Western Canada having a lot of natural gas and oil sands. We have a very plentiful natural gas market, which was ripe to keep prices low.
Okay.
So the history of Ontario is simply this, is when the commodity provider, which is the company that's providing the natural gas, has the actual appliances, you have a bit of a monopoly type situation where you can get into homes. Over the years, it's been regulated, it's been deregulated, it's been separated between commodity and appliance, and it's opened up competition. But what hasn't changed is this simple fact. 100%, give or take, for your audience, but about 100% of subdivisions, when you walk into that home, you can pick every finish for that subdivision. The one thing that's in the basement of that subdivision home, we have a lot of basements here in Ontario, or the garage, it's probably more relevant in Texas. You have a water heater that comes in. That water heater is on a long-term rental contract with one of the two large players in our market, and that comes with closing of your home. So if you build, just simple math, if you build 100,000 homes a year across a province of 3 million people, and every one of those subdivision homes comes with a water heater in the basement, how much choice do you have? And the real punchline on the story, just so you can fully appreciate it, for the last 25 years, all of those appliances were billed on the commodity bill. Meaning, even if you were not the commodity, so you're at one of these two larger companies, you would go make a deal with one of these builders. Those builders would get, some sort of, payment in order to put the water heater in the home. The homeowner would move into the home, and on the gas bill that you're getting through the commodity company would be that monthly fee for your water heater. And that's been going on for 30 years. So 3 million rental water heater contracts later in 3 million homes. In Ontario, 3 million customers have long-term rental contracts with two players in the market here.
I mean, are these like two mafia families? I mean,
that's no, one. So one of the players is one of the biggest private equity firms in the world. The other player is the biggest private equity private family in Asia. And so both of these private equity firms would be largest or one of the largest in the world. They have access to capital. So obviously, back to the way I just described before, if you're going into developers, very similar. We skipped through my telecom journey, but if you want to go build fiber to the home, usually you work with developers and you create incentives for them to directly drive fiber to their subdivisions so that it's pre-wired for fiber before your family moves in. There's only 2 rooms, I always say, in the home, and I've spent 25 years in these 2 industries. There's only 2 rooms in the home that you really need someone to help you do. One is the internet pipe that comes in your home, because without that internet pipe, you're not getting internet. And the other one is what I call your mechanical room. You can't boil water on the stove for your bath anymore. Like maybe someone is, but the reality is every home has hot water, and every home, or most people have heating and cooling. And so you require expertise for both. And I've spent my career trying to find better ways and more, not disruptive ways, but better ways to service customer need. Back to like that original conversation about being a disc jockey. That's still what fuels me to this day.
I love it. Well, I mean, super interesting, and how, a place can get to that monopoly phase is like crazy. I guess money is power. But okay, so now let's jump into Go Lime and exactly what you guys are doing to disrupt that model, and then let's walk through it.
Yeah, perfect. So I'll describe it very simply. Number one, we knew technology had to be at our core. So we set on a mission to build a platform. Instead of using some, I'll call them titans of industry for CRM and other tools, we use an open API model working with some partners to create a more cost-effective technology stack for the company that was seamlessly integrated with our future. So number one was thinking about technology. Number two, and I think you're about my age, but I always laugh when it's like Bizarro World and Seinfeld. But like what we sort of said to ourselves, like what happens if we did the opposite of everyone else? Not as a joke. We actually tested ourselves and said, okay, I'll give you a few of those examples. Every person in Ontario that sells water heaters at our competitors are 100% commission driven. And so therefore you're selling usually on ticket price being high and trying to get this solution that best fits the sales DNA of the person selling. Yep. So we said, what happens if we have no commissions? Then we can create a model where the customer truly feels they're in control. Next one. 100% of water heaters or HVAC equipment is sold at a kitchen table conversation for residential homes. I have to come to your home. I'm going to sit at the kitchen table, and you don't really know the pricing in Ontario till someone arrives, because it's not, you can go to Home Depot and select things on your own, but then you need someone to install it. What GoLime's always been is an end-to-end A to Z company. So we sell, we market, we sell, we install, we service, we bill. So we can do all of those functions. So what we said to ourselves, what happened if we didn't have to go to the home anymore? And a lot of people in our journey over the first year have said, no, but you have to go into the home. I'll get to that in a second. But we said, we don't believe we have to go into the home. So we skipped that step entirely. Last but not least, we said, if we're building a technology company with a platform that we can control, we're removing a bunch of the commonalities that every other company does, which is, high commissions, get in the home at any cost, sell to that customer, multi-step. We sort of said, what if you could purchase something as simple as what you already have in your home? And I'll go through a few of the stats in a moment, at the push of a button. So in 3 clicks on our website, you can pick the water heater you have in your home right now. That's click 1. Click 2, you go to the cart. Click 3, you can choose your method of payment. It's that simple. And we will show up the same day or next day to take out what you have in your home if you're not happy with it, because nobody is without hot water. And we'll give you what we offer that we believe is the best value, choice that's immediately available to your home that you didn't realize was there, and with absolute transparency on every step of the equation. And we can do it same day, next day without you leaving your sofa. You can sit on your couch and have new hot water for your family in a day or two. And that's why we've been excited about what we're calling a bit of a revolution, because if 3 million people haven't experienced choice, we're here to provide it. And that's a bit of what gets us out of bed every day. And we're getting better each week with our technology, with some of the tools that we're implementing. But what we're also finding is customers saying, Jeff, and they reach out to me a lot on LinkedIn, or they reach out an email like, Jeff, I'm saving 50%. Like, what's the trick? And there is no trick. We just tried to cut out a whole bunch of things we didn't think the customer needed. And we were comfortable making quite a bit less margin than potentially our competitors make.
So is it a loophole, or did y'all have to get some new laws written? Like how? No.
Yeah. So you always say, like, I love this guy, Donald Miller, he wrote a book called Story Brand. And what I love about the Story Brand architecture, it always starts with a problem. The problem was twofold. One, I spent almost 3 years working in this industry, both in Canada and the US, and I saw for myself how things were architected. Doesn't mean it's broken. It just meant I saw an opportunity and it was like ingrained in my mind. Secondly, there was a change. The change is that if you get, what's your biggest utility bill? Not the amount, but what's your biggest utility bill that in your home you pay on a monthly basis? Not internet, but is it water, gas, electric? Okay, perfect, power. Yeah. So on the power bill, imagine on page 5, you had a $40 charge for your water heater on page 5. The stickiness would be very high, and the amount of people that would complain would probably be low, because if your power bill, fake numbers, $200, $300, and you're paying $40 for the appliance that heats your water, because it's only 15% of the total, you're not paying attention. October 31st, so yeah, literally 4 weeks ago, the commodity and the home service entities had to separate. That was the regulatory change. And so that created a once in a generation opportunity for people like myself that are sitting with a bunch of entrepreneurs in an organization that is founder driven. And that was why I joined. So our co-founders had always tried to figure out ways to create some disruption, but this created the biggest possible opportunity for us, because if 100% of customers are going to wake up and have a direct billing relationship, and you've been paying for 15 years, but started at 30 and now might be at $40 a month for hot water, we kept saying to ourselves, well, what would happen if we had an alternative? And what happens if our alternative was half the price of the other folks? And by the way, if you have, think about it simply, if you have a water tank in your basement today or in your garage in Texas, and a company went online and said, take a look at what you have, we'll give you exactly what you have for half the price, would you buy it online?
Of course.
I think you would. Now, you're not going to go buy a furnace and all the duct work. Like, we're probably not there yet with machine learning and AI. Maybe one day we'll get better. But I think one of the reasons that no one has sort of driven a pure B2C model online with technology where we live is because there was only two players that were really driving the solution. And it's, unless you have scale, you can't really compete. We are lucky. We have scale. We have 125 team members. We have 12 trucks, probably soon to be 20 trucks. We have people that we've hired that I say I work for, because I really do work for every person in our company, that are developing things that we all dreamed couldn't be done. And when you sort of pull the mission together, it's about driving choice, using technology on a platform that's easy for you to put you in the driver's seat and to make sure that the customer wins 10 out of 10 times in the relationship that we're embarking on. And we feel we can do that not only at scale, but we don't see a situation where, unless a customer doesn't know who we are or why we're here, we don't see a situation where we can't go home by home with this model on a direct to consumer basis to compete against other people that are doing it the complete opposite way.
Okay. I love it. So you're saying they can go to the website, select the model they have, y'all come install it same day or next day. Are y'all also handling the actual the water side of it as well, or do y'all have a partnership? I mean,
no. So the water. So here's the cool part about at least the way Ontario works. The water is sort of run by what would be the state where you are, the province or the city. So the municipality and the province oversee all of the actual physical infrastructure. The commodities either quasi crown or crown, depending on what it is that's being supplied to the home. So electricity would be Toronto Hydro, where I live. Gas would be through Enbridge. I think they're a Houston company, Enbridge, but they're running, they oversee our gas. So we do not have a direct relationship with either. What we have is, we have all of our licenses, we have all of our accreditation, but more importantly, we have something that every customer needs. And the only correction I will say is this, is that you had mentioned they go on the website and pick exactly what they have. If a customer wants tankless, and we see this about 20% of the time, if a customer wants tankless, we're happy to remove their tank and put tankless in. We are utilizing some new technology, of course, photography, like the customer sending us some imagery, and we're doing some really interesting things. Because what I said before, we don't go to the customer's home. We don't have a field sales team. We don't have people in territories that are going into the home. The only people that are going into the home are the service technicians. So if we require a more sophisticated install, our service department's going to go out and do a pre-inspect before, but because no one's on a commission structure, no one's upselling, no one's cross-selling. It's basically, think about it, you're going to the restaurant and someone says to you, I know you ordered the steak, but I really see you as a person that wants a hamburger today. And you're like, no, but I didn't even want a hamburger, but our hamburger is amazing, Jonathan. What I think we noticed is a lot of customers were being switched from tank to tankless because it was incentivized by the seller, not the customer. And the flip side also holds true. I think everyone can understand that there is practical reasons from costs that it may make more sense for some families to have a tank. And what we wanted to do was not pick for the customer. We want the customer to pick. So if a customer wants a tank, we'll deliver a tank. If a customer wants a tankless, we'll absolutely put in a tankless. If a customer wants air conditioning, as I mentioned before, we have an entire bench. The focus on hot water is really because of the market that we're situated in, and the fact that if you take a pizza and there's, half a pizza is one color, let's just say blue, and the other is another color, which is red, and our color is green for Go Lime. Right now, we believe we can go get a slice and then maybe get a second slice just by offering the power of choice, utilizing technology and a platform that can drive it direct to the customer. That's a bit of the power of what we're building here at Go Lime.
All right. So what is the future plans? Will we get into the HVAC side?
So that's the fun part. We're already in the HVAC side. So we currently have a book of customers, and I'm saying a book, but like we have a customer base of 18,000 households already.
Okay.
So we service 18,000 customers. We have a set of what I call our protection plans. They're the most transparent plans in the industry because we deliver exactly what we say we're going to deliver. So we have some of our customers that have proactive maintenance. We have customers that have everything from heat pumps to furnaces to air conditioning, everything across heating, cooling, plumbing, and electrical. We have an entire bench and we have an entire product selection. Why I chose to focus our conversation today on this is we believe if we can get into the home on value, on trust, and on choice, we can earn our place in that customer's home for future purchases. So we have an EV product today for cars. We have a very small solar division where we can do solar. It's not like Texas where we've seen the liftoff. But all we're trying to do every time is transparency, choice, value, everyday great value. We're not going to be the cheapest, but what I will say, if you go on our website and you looked at our water heater pricing and then you went to Home Depot, you would say, oh my God, these guys are competitive with big box home improvement stores. So we're willing to forego some of the margin for the long-term customer journey that we're on here. And we don't haggle because very similar to, what some people have done in industry, our price is on our website. If you literally, or anyone that's watching your podcast went to our website at golime.com, every single thing we sell has a price on the website, which means that you could literally sit there and say to yourself, if I want a new air conditioning unit, I know the price is $5,000 for that air conditioner installed, or that water heater is $1,800. But I'm used to paying a monthly fee, so we have a $0 monthly fee that just happens to be half the monthly recurring revenue for us as the other guys. The reason we can do that is it's not only re-articulating the value chain, but we've removed all the pieces in the middle that we didn't think were necessary for the customer journey. I think where our future holds, if I'm honest, is if we can deliver trust and choice to homeowners, and we can do it for 10,000 and we can get it to 100,000 and we can do it for $500,000, I think we could bring, one of the largest, consumer offerings across Ontario that all started because there was a need to give value and put the customer back in control of something they lost control of.
Yeah, I love that. And so are there any other markets throughout Canada that are set up the same way?
No. So from a rental perspective, 90 to 95% of hot water heaters in Ontario across single family households are on long-term rental contracts with the two private equity owned companies. So there is no market that resembles that anywhere in the world. I don't even think there's anywhere that you probably have heard of, because you're sitting there saying, you're telling me 95 out of 100 homes, if I go and walk the neighborhood, they're renting their water heater. The answer is yes. And so there is nowhere that resembles that. I think, what I've learned is that no different than a car dealership model. And you could argue that's not perfect either, depending on if you're at Tesla, where you're buying a car from the mall, or you're going to the car dealer. But the one thing the car dealer does offer you is every car dealer you walk in, you have three choices. You're either going to buy in cash, you're going to finance it, or you're going to lease it. So it's the company's problem, not yours. I don't think having those options are the problem. I think the fact that many homeowners didn't know they were on a long-term contract, they didn't perceive they had choice because they were in areas where there were no options, and their home came with something on paper that was on page 5 of a bill that they didn't look at, I think is ripe for there being an opportunity for, true customer-centric call it, I don't want to say customer-centric marketing or sales, but it really is like customer-centric focus. Like all we're saying in 100% of the time is you, the customer, are in control. Tell us how we can support your journey. And if your journey comes with, you tell us, Jonathan, you want endless hot water. Well, obviously we're not going to put a tank in. We're going to put a tankless. But if a customer says the most important thing is, listen, inflation for my family's out of control, everything costs more than it did before, and I'm paying $40 a month for my water heater, we're happy to put the same water heater you have in your basement for $20. And that's been a bit of the aha for me. It's not about lowest price. It's actually just simply about the fact that it's choice, and the fact that they've been paying this for 12 years, 13 years, 15 years at $40 a month. You can figure out the math. We figured out the math quite quickly. You're paying over that asset so many times at $40 a month because you know the cost of a hot water tank, that there is a model for us to go direct.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it seems crazy, but I guess it's not if there's no choice.
Correct.
That's what people got used to doing because it's the way of doing business.
Yeah, look, the funny part is, and this is what we laugh in the sense of where we see the opportunity, is it's not, there is nothing in your home, not a single thing where you didn't choose except for the water heater in your basement. That's why our message is so succinct around the one product right now, because everything else you could argue is choice. You have a choice if you want air conditioning. In Texas, if you don't, I'm imagining you're not having a great summer, but you do have the choice. No one's forcing you to have it.
Right.
In where I live, at least, I think it's a basic human right that you have hot water to your home to be able to clean yourself, to wash your dishes. The funny part is for these 3 million homes in Ontario that I mentioned that are renting, they didn't choose the appliance, nor did they choose who they're working with. They just chose the builder. So from our side, we look at it as the ultimate disruption to say, you know what? Choice has arrived, and take a look at what choice looks like with us. And that's what we're building here at Go Live.
I love it. Well, I wish you guys the best. And is there any future of going out of Ontario?
Yeah, for sure. Right now we're focused. I'm a big believer that when you do something good, you can do it everywhere. But if you want to be great, you have to do it in one spot. And so our chairman often says to us, he's like, Jeff, we got to be one thing, and let's do it in one place so that we can make sure that we do it to the best of our abilities. Yeah. So we're going to stay in Ontario for the time being. Ontario is a huge market. Like it is, I don't know the difference, Texas versus Ontario, but if we put them beside each other on a map, I think we'd be like, wow, they're both pretty darn big places. Okay. So we have a lot of territory that we can cover with millions and millions of customers to go after. But yeah, we have ambitions of growing across Canada, and we've actually had 4 or 5 people reach out to us about US expansion opportunities. So we're going to look at it in our journey. But for now, at least for the next 24 to 36 months, our sights are set on this Great White North, that's Ontario. And the power of choice will start with hot water. And I have no doubt we'll be introducing more products on a concerted basis. But every day I'm blown away at how many people are reaching out. And hopefully we'll get some people that tune into your podcast Absolutely. That are interested to learn more.
Yeah. So, and how does everyone reach you?
So great question. The number one way they reach us is golime.com. So golime.com. Like that is our number one channel. We are trying to bring everyone through our website to us. We have an 800 number. I'm on LinkedIn. I answer customer inquiries as quick as possible. We're actually at one of our partners' facilities today. So, we're all about working with others, but the number one way is golime.com.
Well, I hope people will see this and maybe open their eyes a little bit, even in the US market, about that transparency with pricing and coming up with some kind of model that says, hey, like, let's cut some of these expenses out that only adds to the bottom line number to our customer that they don't care about because they want endless hot water. They want this new high efficiency system. But if they knew how much they could get it for and get it into their home and how much money they could probably save, and that transparency would, I think, would close more deals. But when you've got sales guys and commissions and all this other stuff that goes in there, it's hard to put your flat line pricing on your website, right? And because you do got all these other things.
100%.
That's right.
Yeah. And the thing I'll leave you with as well, this is the staggering math. If there's 3 million people in Ontario, each paying an average of $40 a month to rent their water heater, that's about $120 million, I think, on a monthly basis, give or take. So like the point being is like there's hundreds of millions of dollars of recurring revenue. And think about if we could cut that in half. Like you're talking, you're in billions of dollars a year back into the pockets of Ontario homeowners. So that's a bit of the passion and the purpose side of our business. We are a family-owned business, but more importantly, our 125 people are varying in range, but many are family owners themselves. And if you ask someone what would be the difference of cutting your bills in half for this year on a particular item, the answer is there's obviously a huge catch, Jeff. And the answer is no, there's not a huge catch. The answer is we have to wake people up to take a look at their bill, to try to understand what it is that they haven't done, and to hopefully take action to reach out to us or to reach out to other folks to ask questions to say, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner, you deserve transparency, you deserve choice, and hopefully someone's there to provide that for you.
Well, I love it, Jeff. I think y'all are doing some amazing stuff at Go Lime, and it's going to it's going to make a huge impact on those people who haven't had a choice for so many years. So thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on today. Everybody, go find Jeff on LinkedIn or go to golime.com. But if it's to pick his brain on questions about the model that he's come up with, or if it's to get some information on golime.com, reach out to Jeff. Thank you so much for coming on, Jeff. And we look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jonathan. And all the best.
All right. Bye-bye.